This is CBC Here and Now.
Well, we're live from the St. John's Farmers Market, where tonight it is all about Black-owned businesses. It's about celebrating culture and creating community.
Game on for the girls. Two women have done something in hockey nobody in this province has done before.
The crew I was on with was really supportive for sure. They gave me a puck after the game with tape.
I got the puck too.
Yeah, tape.
I'm Mike Moore, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
But then we find out afterwards that they were taken to other schools and moved to other areas, and all they were doing was just spreading the disease as far as I was concerned.
Later in the show, another blow in the Mount Cashel saga. Survivors learn about more abuse as brothers moved across the country. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. In recent weeks, we've reported on the rising cost of living, an apparent rise in crime, and how students, seniors, even food banks are struggling to get by. Now, a shelter on the Avalon says it's turning away hundreds of people in need.
We're hearing stories, in the community on social media that we're not helping people, and they're not wrong. We're not helping people because we just don't have the resources. We are at capacity just about every day. The type of violence is increasing, the frequency, the trauma, the desperation by women, the turning to alcohol and drugs as a way to cope. It's just, we've never seen it like it, never.
Well, Iris Kirby is the only shelter on the Northeast Avalon that houses children. Since April, they've had to turn away 267 people, both in St. John's and Carbonear. Green fears women will die if they don't get away from their abusers, and she says she's seen that happen. We're not done with this story yet. More about the pressures Iris Kirby House is facing ahead in about 20 minutes on Here and Now. Well, the province says immigration to Newfoundland and Labrador is on wheels, but it's criticizing the federal government for hitting the brakes. Jerry Byrne is calling on Ottawa to make changes to allow more people to come here. Here Now's Mark Quinn has the details.
The Minister of Immigration and Population Growth says there's good news and bad news. First, the good news.
In the last 18 months, our population grew by 6,200 people.
Our largest population growth since 1971. Byrne says that's led to what he calls a bittersweet first and some bad news.
Newfoundland and Labrador has completely filled all of its provincial immigration allocation pathways that have been granted it, delegated to it by Ottawa. There is no room left this year. None.
This year, the federal government capped the number of people this province can nominate for permanent residency at 1,593, a number that was reached in early October.
For 3 months, we have been barred, effectively, by Ottawa from submitting any additional nominations to make our population grow even higher.
Byrne's calling on the federal government to increase the allocation number this year and double it next year.
Ottawa must give us what we have already asked for, which is more room, more allocations, the capacity to nominate more people. We should never be in a situation where we run out of room.
The province's Employers' Council couldn't agree more. Its leaders say Newfoundland and Labrador needs immigration to help solve the dire workers' shortage.
I think it's impacting citizens. So you're seeing, your favorite coffee shop, your favorite restaurants maybe closing. I went to the bank the other day. They had to close because they didn't have enough workers. Places you've never seen have to close their doors because they just don't have anyone available to cover lunch breaks, or they don't have anyone available to cover evenings. We're all seeing the impact of this.
The numbers Byrne gave don't include these people. Ukrainians are arriving under a different federal program than other immigrants. More Ukrainians are expected to arrive in December, and Byrne says everyone else is still welcome, but they may have to wait until next year to get nominated for permanent residency. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
There is an air of optimism in Port aux Basques this week following last week's announcement of a relief program. Those affected by Fiona are beginning to see what their future may look like. And that includes a minimum of $200 per square foot replacement value for homes, as well as money for contents and land. Here Now's Troy Turner was in Port aux Basques and has this report.
Here in the Munden home, sand covers the corners of the dining room floor. Shattered glass crunches under your feet. Personal belongings have been heaved around. During Fiona, the ocean tossed the home into an unreturnable state.
There's days right now that I would love to just come back in my house, open my door, crawl in my bed. But I know that can't happen. Like, we have to move on.
Patty Munden is now looking to the future. Following last week's announcement of relief money, a heavy weight has been lifted.
I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. I was so relieved. I could finally, my future was in the hands of the government. And until they made that announcement, I didn't know what my next move was.
People started to feel a little bit depressed and anxiety again, but just without an unknown. Where to from here? So since the announcement, that mood has been uplifted. People can now start to make plans, but it's going to change the community. There's no doubt.
Austin Taylor and his family have found temporary housing for the winter. There's plenty of space for his adult daughter, who is disabled and has mobility issues. He's pleased with last week's news, but there's still uncertainty.
Sounds good. We just got to wait now and see what is going to come down the pipeline, but from what he was saying, it sounded good.
His immediate priority, however, is to have a ramp installed at his current home.
It's very important to her. That's part of her mobility, getting outside and going around. But at the same time, we have her down over the steps and not over the steps. And we're scared she's going to fall, as well as her.
Well, there are still no firm details on when this relief will come. For families such as the Mundens, last week's announcement brought hope and lessened some of the anxiety felt in this community. Troy Turner, CBC News, Port aux Basques.
Well, a 28-year-old man from Renews was sentenced in Supreme Court today for killing his stepfather. Brandon Noftel pleaded guilty to manslaughter for a slaying that happened just before Christmas 2 years ago. Here Now's Malone Mullen reports.
Brandon Noftel couldn't look up as he heard his fate from the bench this afternoon. 5.5 years for taking the life of his stepfather, Robert Noftel, the man who had raised him from a toddler. The family got into a spat over money in December 2020. Robert wrestled with the younger Noftel, who eventually pulled a knife. Robert got his own knife and cornered his stepson, who stabbed his stepfather blindly 4 times before fleeing. Noftel returned when he realized Robert wasn't coming after him. He found him bleeding, put pressure on his wounds, and tried in vain to save him. Justice Kate O'Brien noted Noftel escalated the violence that day, but says he tried to help his stepfather and immediately showed remorse, taking responsibility for his actions. His apology is little solace for Robert's family, though, who believe the sentence was too low for killing a man they remember as dependable and generous.
It wasn't enough.
5.5 years, I'll never bring it back.
No. You can go out, you can kill a moose, you can do anything, and it's definitely
He'll get to go on with his life.
We will, yes, but not without them.
O'Brien also told the court her sentence accounted for Noftel's rocky upbringing. He was raised in poverty by drug users, parents who fought violently, and had long been under the watch of child protection workers. You have to be strong to overcome that kind of childhood, she told him. With time served, Noftel will spend just under 3 years in prison. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
3 men were taken by surprise yesterday when they allegedly broke into a commercial shed in Grand Falls, Windsor, and found officers waiting inside. Police had been investigating a string of recent break-ins. Various snowblowers, lawnmowers, and other equipment had been taken, and some of the locations were struck twice. Overnight Tuesday, officers set up inside one of the sheds, anticipating the suspects may return. Police say in the early morning hours, 3 men kicked in the door and were confronted. 2 of those men were arrested while 1 escaped. The RCMP believes multiple suspects are involved in the break-ins and their investigation is ongoing. Utility experts are scrambling, trying to find out why a critical power test for the Muskrat Falls transmission line failed this morning. 60,000 customers had outages as a result. It was the biggest test yet for the troubled Labrador Island Link, which was energized up to 700 megawatts. But when one of the 2 lines was intentionally tripped today as part of a test, something went wrong. Large blocks of customers lost power for up to 25 minutes as backup generation came online. Hydro officials acknowledge the setback, but say testing is necessary.
Now, I know there's been a lot of pessimism for a long time about this link, but I think we have reason to be optimistic. We are crawling our way out of the trench on this, and we are going to slip backwards from time to time, but we are closer to the finish line than we've ever been, and you know, with the successful completion of these final tests, we can call this thing commissioned.
Now, future tests are now on hold. The cause of today's failure will determine the schedule for final commissioning. 2 women made Newfoundland and Labrador hockey history last weekend. Claire Howie and Leah Rideout were the first women to ever referee men's junior hockey, and they're getting a lot of attention for their achievement. Reporter Mike Moore met up with the duo at the St. Bon's Forum in St. John's.
They're colleagues, they're classmates, and they're best friends. Claire Howie and Leah Rideout have spent years together on the ice learning how to enforce the rules of hockey. It's fitting the pair also shared a major historic moment together. Howie called the penalties while Rideout policed the lines in separate St. John's Junior Hockey League matchups last weekend.
Oh, I think it's a massive step for us in Newfoundland and Labrador officiating for sure. Because you see, we've already seen like across the country actually that women are already doing this kind of stuff.
Both Howie and Rideout took their solo laps as the first women to referee junior hockey in the province. It's a long-standing tradition in the sport where the rookie leads the way in their first game and the team watches on. It's the same tradition among referees.
We were talking about it, we're like, man, we're a little bit nervous, but we don't want anyone to know. So we were just kind of like, go with the flow, do our warm-up, get our headphones in, just make it like any other game, just do our job.
But it wasn't just another game. Hockey NL's referee-in-chief Ed Flood calls the pair's achievements a win for everyone. Among Flood's first orders of business after being elected in 2017 was to grow officiating among women. Right now, there are 78 women wearing the stripes in Newfoundland and Labrador.
I think they have to realize, too, that they now are leaders because some of these female officials, younger and maybe even older than them, want to do this, too.
Howie and Rideout are breaking down barriers for the women who will follow behind them. And while this is just their first game in stripes at this level, both say it won't be their last drop of the puck. Mike Moore, CBC News, St. John's.
There's an event to support Black-owned small businesses at the St. John's Farmers Market tonight, and that's where Heather Gillis is right now. So Heather, what more can you tell us about it?
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you. Well, we're here at the St. John's Farmers Market, and there are 14 Black-owned businesses here. There is cooking, there is clothing, there is art, jewelry, nails, you name it. There's a lot here tonight. And the market organizer and founder, Nicole Obidaka, says it's about creating a place for Black entrepreneurs to support them and to also celebrate culture and community.
As we know, small businesses face a lot of barriers, but Black-owned businesses face an additional barrier, such as racism, lack of access to capital, lack of access to like a support network or government funding. So the Black-owned vendor market is designed to help them build a network. So, St. John's Community Market is very popular amongst local Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So it's a great opportunity to connect them with local community partners and also to give them a physical presence in the sense of belonging within the community.
It's like a community of like no competition. Everybody is just here to like cheer themselves on and support each other. Like it just feels very much like you can run to another person and be like, these are my frustrations that I'm having with this, and they can like relate to you and offer support. And that's just, it's a beautiful like non-toxic community. We're all here for each other. We all support each other, and it's amazing.
The third and most important is to celebrate Black culture. So if you speak to any of these vendors, you will find out that a lot of their pieces or items are inspired by like a story about their upbringing or about their culture. So it really lets you appreciate Black culture and celebrate it as well.
This one is something that is the biggest export for me, like biggest export from Ghana. And this design used to be only be worn by kings and queens from Ghana. So being able to now do it here, if you are able to wear this, you feel as if you are part of royalty. I would like to say we need the support of the people in St. John's. If we are able to get support, I think we would go far. And these things are something new, and I think if the people can jump on the train with us, we would go far. And One Nation, we are here to inspire people and empower people to be unique. So if you want to be unique, jump on the One Nation train.
And one other Black-owned business here at the Farmers Market tonight is the NL Rage Room, and the owner, Demisa Bebe, is here with me.
Right, yeah.
Tell me about your business.
So this is just NL Rage Room. It's a bit of an unusual, exciting way to just go around, release some stress, have fun.
Yep.
With a group of friends, maybe you're on your own and just feel a bit tired and angry. You can come here and just smash anything ranging from cups, plates, pots, pans, cars, and washing machines.
Well, it sounds like fun. Can I give it a crack?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll give you the microphone. So reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Heather Gillis. That's a lot of fun. Thanks, Carolyn.
Well, that looked like fun. Some people might want to be doing that, considering the weather outside is not the greatest. We've got blowing snow advisories, wind warnings, and blizzard warnings as well. Break the full forecast down for you coming up.
Time for a look at the weather. And Ashley, I felt like everywhere I went today, people were talking about the cold temperatures and how cold everyone felt.
You know, and I was talking about this earlier too. It's because we had such a warm summer, and then that really bled into fall, at least the first half of fall, and then all of a sudden it was winter.
Yeah, changed so quickly.
So we haven't really had some time to acclimatize, but don't worry, you'll have lots more time. It's still early winter, but yeah, some of the coldest air that we've seen so far this year was, you know, overnight last night and through the day today. Take a look at those morning lows. Minus 21 in Mary's Harbour. In fact, that was a record today, and then minus 16 in Badger this morning, minus 11 in Terra Nova. So certainly lots of cold air in the mix. And today, you know, those temperatures rebounded quite dramatically actually for Mary's Harbour, about 4 degrees this afternoon, but still well below zero for a good chunk of the island, or still below zero, I should say. The well below zero temperatures are up across Labrador, minus 10 in Lab City. Now, the other thing that made this even worse was the fact that there was significantly windy conditions. So wind chill values into the minus teens still right now, minus 4 in St. John's, and with that wind chill, it's feeling more like minus 13. And Gander minus 14 up across Labrador, pretty similar as far as wind chills go. But along the coast, Makkovik, you're sitting at minus 1, but your wind chill is feeling like minus 9. So we do have lots of windy conditions. Taking a look at some of the sustained winds. In fact, up across Nain, or in Nain overnight, because of that blizzard, there was some damage that was reported, especially at the airport. There was reports that some of the storm surge was up over the runways, so certainly some damage from that. But as far as the winds go for you, they've come down quite a bit. 48 kilometers per hour, but the wind's really starting to ramp up. So currently sustained in St. Anthony, 70 kilometers per hour, 67 in Bonavista, and then even along the west coast, well, particularly southwest, Wreck House, 65 kilometers, 78 in Port aux Basques. That's not even including the wind chill, or the wind gusts. When you factor that in, you're close to 100 kilometers per hour right now in Port aux Basques, and then we're getting there, already there in St. Anthony at 104, and Bonavista's at 83. So this will continue to ramp up as we head through the next couple of hours. Just taking a look at the wind forecast. This is just for St. John's, just to give you an idea of what's going to happen, but they will continue to ramp up as we get through the next couple of hours. By midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, we'll likely be seeing those gusts over 100 kilometers per hour, particularly in those exposed areas. So let's just time this out for everyone else as well. Northern Peninsula, you're already seeing those gusts, and then once this area of low pressure starts to move a little bit closer, that's really when we'll see the winds ramp up. Bonavista North, Bonavista, Northern Avalon, that's the sweet spot for the strong winds, somewhere between 100 to 120 kilometers per hour. And it's going to continue. It'll continue right through the night tonight, and then into tomorrow morning. We're still seeing those gusts between 60 to 90 kilometers per hour. Exposed areas may see a little bit more than that. Finally, as we head through the afternoon hours on Friday, we will see those winds ease. Now, just taking a look at what's going on, you can see that low spinning offshore. That's what's moving closer. Also, lots of snow squalls on the west coast. The winds are going to start to change, so that will alleviate that snow squall risk for you. So over the next couple of hours, you'll start to see those taper off, but it is going to bring some snow with it, that area of low pressure that I was just talking about. So blowing snow advisory is still very much in place along with those wind warnings. I do anticipate on the west coast, though, that they will end in the next little bit. But just taking a look at what's happening up across Labrador, still have those the blizzard warnings rather in place. And then this area of low pressure is what's going to bring that snow. So you'll start to see it. Bonavista North, Bonavista, again, Northern Peninsula, Northern Avalon. Start to see that snow over the next couple of hours. It'll likely be fairly heavy as well, and it'll move through quite quickly. So by tomorrow afternoon, we're already looking at those skies generally clearing, at least the snow clearing as we head through the afternoon. Another cold night expected tonight, minus 22 in Lab City, otherwise minus single digits the story. But again, with those winds, it will feel significantly colder than this. So as far as snowfall amounts go, still looking at accumulations along the coast, should start to taper off along the west coast, but I'll zoom in to the northern portion of, or the northeast coast rather. So we could be talking about 15 to 20 centimeters, again, depending on that exact track of that low, but this is certainly possible. Combine that with the winds and the cool temperatures, reduced visibility, certainly going to be an issue tonight. So think about travel if that's your plan tonight. As we head through tomorrow, not a whole lot going on. In fact, we should actually see things clear out for the most part. And then we watch the next system move in for Saturday. It looks like rain, lots of rain in some cases, and wind again. I'll get into those full details coming up.
Returning now to Iris Kirby House. It's the only shelter on the Northeast Avalon able to house children, and staff say they're at their limit. Nearly 270 people have been turned away since the spring. CBC's Ariana Kellen sat down with the shelter's director to hear more about their struggle.
What we're seeing now is that there is an increase in the demand for our service, both from a homelessness perspective and from a domestic violence perspective. So we're seeing quite a number of turnaways. So since April 1st, in St. John's, we've seen 241 turnaways. So we've only housed 108 people. So we're seeing an incredible amount of turnaways because people just don't have anywhere else to go. And when someone is fleeing domestic violence, there's really nowhere else to go. When they're fleeing homelessness or when they're trying to house themselves, there's very, very few places to go. So our mandates are becoming a little bit blurred. So we're hearing stories, in the community on social media that we're not helping people, and they're not wrong. We're not helping people because we just don't have the resources. We are at capacity just about every day.
You've been in this business. You were a social worker originally, right?
I am. I've been a social worker in the province since 1988.
Have you ever seen it like this?
Never. So I did do some work with the Military Family Resource Centre and National Defence when people were coming home from Afghanistan. Even the traumas that they experienced, while not to minimize them at all, are just as dramatic as the traumas that the women we're seeing are experiencing now. I've been here for 5 years, and year over year, day over day almost, we're seeing the challenges increase. The type of violence is increasing, the frequency, the trauma, the desperation by women, the turning to alcohol and drugs as a way to cope. It's just, no, we've never seen it like it, never.
How does it feel when you see a mother and her children come to you for help, or any individual, and you have to say, we just simply cannot help you?
And we will still help them. We may not be able to house them, but we will still help them. So we will help them do an income support application if finances are part of what they need to leave. We will help them work with Newfoundland and Labrador Housing if housing is what they need. We will do outreach and help keep them safe. We'll connect them with the Intimate Partner Violence Unit. So we will still help them, but in terms of standing in the doorway and saying, there's no bed. We will work with the Newfoundland and Labrador homeless line to see if we can find somewhere. There are some new programs through CSSD under the Income Support Division where they will provide accommodations, but the accommodations they provide are the transition houses. So there's nowhere else to go. We are the only facility in the Northeast Avalon that takes children. So the Wiseman Centre has the 4 beds for homeless women, but not women with children. Naomi Centre has 8 beds for women under 30, but not women with children. The Gathering Place, you can, sometimes get a female bed there, but not women with children. So even if they're a homeless family, they are, and it's not an issue of domestic violence, there's still nowhere for them to go. Now, Newfoundland and Labrador Housing is trying things. They're a very positive working relationship with them, but it's not for tonight.
Where do these women and children go if they show up here and there's nowhere for them to sleep? I mean, what's the fear of what's going to happen to them, or where they will go?
I got goosebumps. Lots of people will go back home, and we know statistically that if you've left and the violent partner knows you've left and you've go back, there's a higher risk for homicide. And I know over the last 5 years that there have been women who have stayed here, that when they've gone home or when they've left here, they have died. The women have died at the hands of their abusers. So our fear is that women will die when they go back to their intimate partner. Our fear also for the homeless community is that people are going to die. In the summer, there were stories about people living in Pibby Park, and there was all the support that came out. Those people still don't have places to go. There's people living in the woods around our city who have nowhere to go, and our fear is that someone's going to die. Someone's going to die in their home when they've gone back to an abuser, or someone's going to die because of homelessness. And it's really challenging because our mandate is not homeless. I say in jest all the time, like, Iris never intended us to deal with homeless women. But what do you do, right, when it's freezing out and there's a couch here, right? So, there's been times, the first office we were in, there's been times we've said to women, look, we can't do anything tonight, but stay on the couch and we'll see if we can help you in the morning. It's really, we talked earlier, it's just a perfect storm.
Mount Cashel survivors have spent decades struggling as a result of the abuse they suffered at the hands of the Christian Brothers in St. John's. And now another blow. New details are emerging from a court case in Vancouver about what those very same Christian Brothers did after Mount Cashel. CBC reporter Ryan Cook brings us this look at the connections between hundreds of men 7,000 kilometers apart. But first, a warning, this story does contain details of sexual abuse and suicide.
An upper-class Vancouver private school, an orphanage in Newfoundland. On the surface, these places couldn't have been more different, but they had something in common.
I lived in fear every day.
I spent every day in Mount Cashel in fear. A 10-year-old little boy in fear.
Colin Wilson and Kevin Little have never met. They grew up on opposite ends of the country, but they have one degree of separation.
Every day I was always looking over my shoulder, afraid that Brother Burke was going to come and grab me.
Burke had me scared on a daily basis.
The Christian Brothers of Ireland ran schools and institutions around the globe. They were something less than priests, but were revered as religious leaders in Catholic education. They wielded authority, often without mercy.
I'm going to tell you the story of stuff that happened to me that people are not going to believe. As horrific as it may sound, it is true.
Like many kids at Mount Cashel, Kevin Little came from a broken home in rural Newfoundland. His parents were unable to care for all the kids in a house without running water or electricity, so Little joined about 90 other boys at Mount Cashel Orphanage in St. John's. Little was placed in a dormitory under the care of Brother Joseph Burke. Burke has always denied abusing kids, though he's been accused by at least 8 men in criminal and civil court. Little says Burke would often drag him away from the others, taking him to his private office alone and scared.
Well, he'd make me take off my clothes, and he'd make me, sometimes I'd be in the nude, and sometimes he'd flick my genital area. He would make me lift my arms and pinch the skin and haul the skin away. That's what he did on a regular basis. And I was frightened to death of this man for every little thing I'd done.
In the 1970s, people weren't ready to believe the Christian Brothers could do any wrong. The truth was, dozens of kids at Mount Cashel were being abused, and some tried to tell the authorities.
In 1975, Bobby Connors gave police a statement alleging that brothers English, Ralph, Burke, and Kenny were abusing boys at Mount Cashel Orphanage.
The door was closed.
If only they'd listened. Bob Connors was at Mount Cashel with his little brothers, Darren and Greg. He gave a statement to police in 1975, and that statement was buried as part of a cover-up by the brothers, police, and Justice Department. The investigating officer pointed the blame to Police Chief John Lawler.
Mr. Lawler, you seem to be passing the blame on either to the officers beneath you or to the officials above you.
That's what you're saying, not me. You're saying that. I'm not blaming anyone.
Lawler's own son was a Christian brother, later accused of abusing boys at Mount Cashel in the 1960s. The cover-up haunts Bob Connors to this day.
We told our stories, and I think the bottom line was I don't think anybody believed us, right? So I know that eventually these brothers were moved or transported or taken somewhere else, and we figured that was the end of it, right? So, but then we find out afterwards that they were taken to other schools and moved to other areas, and all they were doing was just spreading the disease as far as I was concerned, right? So
10 years later, Colin Wilson was a grade 9 student at Vancouver College. His class clown antics caught the attention of his teacher, Joseph Burke. Wilson says Burke took him and 3 other boys under his wing. They'd meet in his office at the back of the cafeteria, one at a time while the others waited outside.
I'd get hit, and it was probably up to 10 times over the pants with his hand. That was stage one. Stage two was if he felt that you needed more punishment, he would pull out, he would make you pull out of the top drawer a piece of wood, probably the consistency of a hockey stick, maybe that long, and pull that out. Again, assume the position you'd lay across his desk, and he would hit you with that, which was way more painful than his hand. And he would always threaten you with stage three, which was the bare bottom spanking.
Wilson says Burke went to step 3 one night in December 1985. It was too late to stay in his office, so Wilson says they locked up the school and left.
We got into his van. It's dark. We drive into the Marpole area to his apartment. He then asked me to drop my pants, which I did, and I stood there in my underwear, and he said, all of it. At this point, I'm like crying, snot and everything coming out of my nose, and put me across his lap and hit me. Yeah, probably the normal 10 times, and then made me go back, dress myself, and we got back into his van. He dropped me at the closest bus stop that would get me back to Richmond, and I never told my parents.
Wilson says those experiences followed him after Vancouver College. He was diagnosed with anxiety in the 90s, and he battled addiction over the past 30 years.
I just recently did a stint in a recovery center for alcohol abuse. And when I was in there, I had to go back into my past, and I had to we did a session where I had to find traumas in my past.
Wilson says that inspired him to see whatever happened to Burke, but he wasn't prepared for what he found. 15 years after the cover-up, the story broke.
I am not certain whether
a judicial inquiry led to charges against 14 men. Burke was convicted of assaulting 4 children, including Kevin Little and Bob Connor's youngest brother, Darren. However, all but one conviction was overturned by the Supreme Court of Canada. On the one remaining, Burke got a conditional discharge for common assault. No criminal record.
I don't feel ecstatic about it. I'm still very angry that it happened in the first place. That I was found guilty of things that I don't even think about. No, I gave 7 years of my life to that province, and they took 7 more.
The Supreme Court questioned the boys' stories, saying Little in particular was, quote, too bizarre to accept. Today, Little says the pain of it all nearly killed him. He blew a career in the military and attempted suicide when he was 18.
But like, I didn't understand. Because I was physically an adult, I was mentally still a child. Like, I never had that chance to grow up. I never had that chance to be taught to be safe and secure, like a child should be.
Darren Connors was also wrecked by the outcome.
Joe Burke's a piece of garbage. Joe Burke should go to jail. Joe Burke did what he did. You know, if he was here, and I said it to his face in court, and I'll say it to him again, anytime, anywhere, any place. The man did what he did. He did it to me. He did it to a number of other people. He's a sadistic bastard.
Bob Connor says his little brother never recovered from Mount Cashel or the sting of being disbelieved.
Darren struggled. Darren and my other brother, Greg, they both struggled big time, right? I think because I latched on and I got married and I had support, they never had the support like I had, right? So I think it was hard for them, and especially relationship-wise. They couldn't have relationships, right? Either one of them. So I think they bonded together. They moved in together and bonded with each other, and that was their support.
That bond was eternal. Greg Connors died by suicide in 2014, and Darren followed in 2016 in the same room where his brother died.
I think Greg and Darren just gave up, right? There was no other way out for them. And eventually they took their lives, right? And it all had to do because of what happened in Mount Cashel.
Of the brothers convicted, none were able to return to teaching, except Joseph Burke. Fresh off his conditional discharge, he returned to Vancouver College. He taught until 2013, when he retired amid an investigation into his disciplinary tactics. Mount Cashel was torn down in 1992 to make way for a supermarket. This small memorial is all that's left of the old orphanage, but there's strands of Mount Cashel that keep stretching out across the country. 65 men and counting are now suing 6 former brothers who left Mount Cashel for Vancouver College and St. Thomas More Collegiate. They're also suing the schools and the Archdiocese of Vancouver. Colin Wilson is one of those men, but he says he doesn't want any money. He just wants to know how this could have happened.
I don't know if you know Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus preached, beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. Well, that's what Mr. Burke was. He was able to manipulate the situation and be your friend, and then on the flip side, turn into this evil man. And he's a very sick individual. He's caused a lot of pain for a lot of people.
Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
there's a modern day gold rush happening in central Newfoundland, and if you watch Land and Sea this weekend, you'll find out all about the family behind the discovery. Host Jane Adey joins us now to talk about the episode. So Jane, can you tell us where this mining exploration is taking place?
So Carolyn, this story centers around Appleton in central Newfoundland as well as Gander. And we're going to meet the Keats family, and prospecting goes back generations in this family. We'll also take you right to the Newfound Gold Corp exploration site and show you about the work going on there. But as I mentioned, the Keats family is the really interesting part of this story, and the history that goes back to Kevin Keats' great-great-grandfather, a Mi'kmaq man named Suli Joe. So there's a little bit of intrigue about this man because he, during a walk on his trap line, discovered a silvery rock, but he died before anybody could follow up on that. So there's a little bit of intrigue in this Land and Sea. But this is also a feel-good story, as most Land and Seas are, about the work going on in central Newfoundland. And many of the Keats family members have been able to come back to central Newfoundland to find work on this particular project. So as I said, a feel-good story, but a little bit of intrigue, and of course a lot about the economy and how much money this is pumping into the local economy every week, millions of dollars going into that particular area. So this is a story that was actually pitched to us by reporter Zach Gowdy. He wanted to follow up on an old Land and Sea, in fact, that was done by Dave Quinton many years ago, where they had interviewed some members of the Keats family. So he wanted to follow up on that and find out what is going on now. So Zach Gowdy and cameraman Ted Dillon went out to central Newfoundland to bring us this story.
Oh, sounds like it's going to be an interesting one. How can people watch?
So people should watch for a story called Family Prospects. That's what Zach has named the show, and that's going to be on Sunday at 11:30. That's 11 o'clock in most of Labrador.
Thanks so much, Jane.
You're welcome.
Well, after a very windy day today and what will be a very windy night, we're going to start to see those winds ease as the day goes on. So the morning, likely along the northeast coast, you will see those winds gusting close to 100 kilometers per hour, but they will dramatically drop off as we head through the day. So we're looking at those temperatures in the single digits for the most part tomorrow afternoon, 0 to 1 or 2 degrees, a little bit warmer for the northern peninsula. I don't say that very often, but a little bit warmer for you, about 2 or 3 degrees. And then again, along the west coast, we may see some flurries redevelop into the afternoon. Not anticipating too much in the way of accumulation, but still looking at that potential. As far as Labrador goes, coastal areas will start to see that snow taper off as we head towards the evening and then eventually into Saturday morning. But the temperatures across Nain will start quite mild and then they'll drop as the day goes on. And then for Happy Valley Goose Bay, you're hovering around -3 through the day. Those winds, as you head further west, will be out of the south between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. So as we head through Friday overnight, we'll see some more snow move in across Labrador, but we're going to see the next system move in across the islands. We've been seeing this very wintry mix of weather, but things are going to change through the day on Saturday. Some milder air will move in. That means the potential for some rain, and quite a bit of it, especially along the south coast. So things through central, the interior, and along the west coast, particularly further north, and then even the northern peninsula. We're going to see that start as snow and then eventually change over to rain through the day on Saturday as some milder air moves in, and that rain will push its way further east as well. And then the winds will pick up. So the winds will move right back in for your Saturday. Temperatures are going to start to warm up. So 5 to 7 degrees, and then through central, a bit cooler, between 3 and 4 degrees. And then up across Labrador, you'll stay on the cold side of this. Again, some accumulating snow along the strait and towards Cartwright, and then even Happy Valley Goose Bay will be looking at that snow. So this system will stick around. There's a bit of disagreement on this, but it does look like it'll stick around, bring some heavy rain again overnight on Saturday and continue through Sunday morning. Now this is not the best news for the Christmas parade. It'll also be accompanied by some fairly strong wind. So at this point, models are pointing at the potential for 30 to 50 millimeters of rain and then the wind staying quite strong. But again, depending on that, we may see the winds drop off and even some clearing skies into the afternoon. So definitely going to keep an eye on this forecast for Sunday as that Christmas parade will kick off around 12 o'clock, weather depending. Now, as far as the temperatures go, they are going to warm up as well. We're talking about temperatures between 6 to 8 degrees for eastern Newfoundland as well as along the south coast, 4 to 5 through central. So any rain that or any snow that has fallen will take a little bit of a beating, especially with that rain. And then for the northern peninsula, you may see even a few showers as well. This should stay as snow across the big land, or at least the chance of some snow across the big land. Looking at the long range forecast, between 5 to 6 degrees, overnight lows hovering around there as well, and then overnight lows dipping on Tuesday down to about -5. But again, looking very unsettled even into Monday and Tuesday. And then for central Newfoundland, some flurry activity will return for Monday and Tuesday as those temperatures start to dip. You can see the overnight lows are dipping as well, mid-minus single digits. And then for western Newfoundland, again, the potential for onshore flurries will move right back in. So Monday and Tuesday, and again, your overnight lows into the minus single digits. Now, as far as eastern Labrador goes, after the snow for Saturday and Sunday, Monday and Tuesday actually looking pretty nice, but we're going to see a big drop in temperatures, especially in the west. Take a look at those numbers. Overnight lows -18, -26 by the time we get into Tuesday. So we're going to watch some Arctic, really cold Arctic air move in. And I'll definitely keep an eye on that forecast, but it is looking like a cool stretch. Another winter wonderland to share with you. How great's this shot? This is now in Springdale. David shared that shot with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nophotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that is a very pretty for sure. Thank you, David. So yeah, definitely, as you've said, keep an eye on the forecast for the Christmas parade on Sunday.
That's
so
right, yeah.
we shall see. I guess you'll have a better idea tomorrow too.
Except it won't be me. It'll be Heather tomorrow.
Right. Heather is going to be here.
Take a long weekend, so Heather will have your Christmas parade.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.